The planet Valoria was a hidden gem in the vast expanse of the galaxy, a world untouched by the tumult of interstellar conflicts. Its skies were an endless canvas of cerulean, occasionally brushed with wisps of clouds that drifted lazily over verdant landscapes. The rolling hills of emerald green stretched as far as the eye could see, dotted with vibrant flora that seemed to glow under the gentle sunlight. Rivers, clear as crystal, wound their way through lush forests, their waters singing a soothing lullaby to anyone who cared to listen. Elia, a bright-eyed girl with hair the color of autumn leaves, thrived in this paradise. Her days were filled with laughter and learning, her nights with stories and dreams. Her family was her world, and within the walls of their home, she found both comfort and inspiration. Her parents, renowned scientists, had instilled in her a deep love for knowledge and a reverence for life in all its forms. Their home was a sanctuary of wisdom, a place where the wonders of the universe were explored and celebrated. Bookshelves lined the walls, filled with volumes on biology, chemistry, and astronomy. Holographic displays projected the intricate dance of atoms and the majestic swirl of galaxies. Her parents often held animated discussions about their latest research, their voices a symphony of curiosity and discovery. "Elia, come here," her father would call, his eyes twinkling with excitement. "Look at this. A new species of plant we've discovered in the northern forest. Its leaves have remarkable healing properties." Elia would rush over, her heart racing with anticipation. She loved these moments, when the mysteries of the natural world unfolded before her. Her father's enthusiasm was infectious, and she would listen intently, her mind absorbing every detail like a sponge. Her mother, equally passionate, often took Elia on expeditions into the wild. They would spend hours exploring the forests, collecting samples, and observing the intricate ecosystems that thrived in Valoria's unique environment. Elia's mother had a gentle way of teaching, her voice soft yet filled with the weight of wisdom. "Every organism here has a role," Elia, she would explain, kneeling to show her a tiny luminescent insect. "From the smallest insect to the tallest tree, each one contributes to the balance of life. It's our duty to understand and protect that balance." These teachings shaped Elia's worldview, instilling in her a profound respect for life and a thirst for knowledge. She dreamed of one day following in her parents' footsteps, of making her own discoveries and contributing to the legacy of scientific excellence. Evenings in the family home were a time of bonding and reflection. The family would gather around the fireplace, its warm glow casting flickering shadows on the walls. Elia's father would tell stories of distant stars and ancient civilizations, his voice weaving tales of wonder and adventure. Her mother would add her own insights, enriching the narratives with her vast knowledge. "Do you know," Elia, her father once said, his voice hushed with reverence, "that every star in the sky has a story? Some are as old as the universe itself, their light traveling across eons to reach us, and some, like Valoria's own sun, are just beginning their journey." Elia would gaze up at the night sky, her imagination soaring among the stars. She felt a deep connection to the cosmos, a sense of belonging to something vast and mysterious. The stars were her companions, their light a reminder that even in the darkest times, there was always hope. One such night, as they lay under the open sky, her mother pointed out a constellation. "Look, Elia, that's the phoenix. It's a symbol of rebirth and renewal. No matter how dire things may seem, there's always the possibility of a new beginning." Those words resonated deeply with Elia, embedding themselves in her heart. She didn't know then how much she would need to hold onto that belief, how crucial it would become in the trials that awaited her. For now, she was content in her bubble of bliss, her world untouched by the darkness lurking beyond the horizon. Valoria's beauty was matched only by its serenity, a perfect haven for a child like Elia to grow and flourish. But even in the most idyllic settings, change is inevitable. The forces of the universe are constantly in motion, weaving together destinies in ways that are often beyond comprehension. For Elia, the tranquility of her childhood was a precious gift, one that would sustain her through the storms to come. In the heart of Valoria, surrounded by love and knowledge, she was a beacon of hope and potential. Her journey was just beginning, a path that would take her from the peaceful meadows of her home to the darkest corners of the galaxy, and ultimately, to a future she could scarcely imagine. The twin suns of Valoria hung lazily in the afternoon sky, casting a golden hue over the landscape. Elia ran through the lush fields, her laughter echoing across the valley as she chased after a flock of colorful bird-like creatures. The air was filled with the scent of blooming flora, a testament to the planet's abundant life and beauty. Ilia's mother called her in for lunch, her voice gentle yet authoritative. The family gathered around their wooden table, laden with fresh fruits and vegetables harvested from their garden. Her father, a tall man with kind eyes, shared stories of his latest scientific discoveries, his passion for knowledge lighting up his face. Ilia listened intently, absorbing every word with the curiosity and enthusiasm of a child eager to learn. But as the family enjoyed their meal, a distant rumble disrupted the peaceful ambience. Ilia's father paused, his expression shifting from joy to concern. The rumble grew louder, and the ground beneath them trembled slightly. Birds took flight in a panicked flurry, and the once tranquil atmosphere became charged with unease. Ilia's father stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "Stay inside," he commanded, his voice filled with a stern urgency that Ilia had never heard before. He rushed to the window, peering out at the horizon where dark shapes were rapidly approaching. Panic seized Ilia's heart as she clung to her mother's side. "What's happening?" "Mama," she whispered, her voice trembling. Her mother's face was pale, her eyes wide with fear. "Pirates," she muttered under her breath, wrapping an arm around Ilia protectively. "We must hide." The family hurried to a hidden compartment beneath the floorboards, a precautionary measure they had hoped never to use. As they crouched in the cramped space, Ilia's heart pounded in her chest. The sounds of chaos grew louder, the roar of engines, the shouts of men, and the unmistakable crackle of fire. All through a small gap in the floorboards, Ilia watched in horror as the pirates descended upon their home. Ruthless and armed to the teeth, they moved with terrifying efficiency, ransacking everything in their path. The once beautiful landscape was now marred by destruction, gardens trampled, homes set ablaze, and the air thick with smoke. Her father's hand tightened around hers, his eyes locked onto hers with a fierce determination. "Stay quiet." No matter what he whispered, his voice barely audible. "We'll get through this." But as the minutes dragged on, the inevitable happened. The pirates discovered their hiding place, dragging the family out into the harsh daylight. Ilia's father tried to shield his family, but the pirates were relentless. They beat him mercilessly, their laughter ringing in Ilia's ears as she screamed for them to stop. Amid the chaos, a pirate with a scarred face grabbed Ilia, pulling her away from her mother's grasp. "Leave her alone," her mother cried, but her pleas were met with a vicious blow that silenced her. Ilia's world spun as she was thrown into the back of a pirate ship, her vision blurred by tears. As the ship ascended, Ilia caught a final glimpse of her home, now a smoldering ruin. Her family lay motionless on the ground, the vibrant life they once shared extinguished in an instant. The pain of loss pierced through her heart like a dagger, and she felt her innocence shatter under the weight of her grief. The pirate ship roared into the sky, leaving Valoria behind. Ilia huddled in a corner, her small frame trembling with sobs. She was surrounded by the harsh, unyielding faces of the pirates, their eyes devoid of mercy. The reality of her situation began to sink in. She was alone, her family gone, and her world irrevocably changed. Hours turned into days as the pirate ship traveled through the vastness of space. Ilia's once vibrant spirit dimmed, replaced by a numbness that spread through her entire being. She clung to the memories of her family, replaying their voices and faces in her mind, desperate to keep them alive within her heart. The ship finally docked at a grim, industrial outpost on a distant planet. Ilia was dragged off the ship and thrown into a cell, the cold metal walls closing in around her. The pirates had taken everything from her, her family, her home, her innocence. And now, as she sat in the darkness, a new emotion began to stir within her, a burning desire for survival and revenge. In the depths of despair, Ilia vowed to herself that she would not remain a victim. She would endure, she would learn, and one day she would make those who destroyed her world pay. The weight of the chains around her wrists and ankles had become a familiar, numbing presence. Ilia sat in the dimly lit cell of the pirate ship, her mind drifting in and out of consciousness. The days blurred together, a ceaseless cycle of hunger, pain, and despair. Memories of Valoria haunted her dreams, her mother's gentle smile, her father's patient teaching, the laughter of friends long gone. Now all that remained was the echo of her loss and the darkness that surrounded her. One night the ship shuddered violently, jolting Elia from her restless sleep. Shouts and the clash of weapons filled the air, a cacophony of chaos that sent a thrill of fear through her veins. She pressed herself against the cold, metal wall, straining to make sense of the commotion. The door to her cell burst open, and a figure cloaked in black stepped inside, moving with a predatory grace. Elia, the voice was soft, almost a whisper. "We're here to get you out." Before she could react, the figure produced a small device, and the chains fell away from her wrists and ankles with a quiet clink. She rubbed her raw skin, eyes wide with disbelief. Who are you?" No time for questions. "Can you walk?" The figure's face was obscured by a mask, but the urgency in their voice was unmistakable. Elia nodded, though her legs trembled as she stood. The figure supported her with surprising strength, guiding her through the narrow corridors of the ship. The sounds of battle grew louder, the smell of smoke and blood thick in the air. They moved swiftly, avoiding the skirmishes and slipping through the shadows like wraiths. As they emerged onto the deck, Elia's breath caught in her throat. The night sky was ablaze with the fire of the pirate ship's burning hull. Dark figures darted through the chaos, their movements precise and deadly. These were not ordinary rescuers, they were something else entirely. A sleek, black craft hovered nearby, its engines a low hum against the roar of the flames. Her rescuers signaled, and a ramp extended towards them. "Get in," they urged, pushing her gently but firmly. Elia stumbled up the ramp, collapsing onto the cool metal floor of the craft. The figure followed, pressing a button to retract the ramp and seal the hatch. The craft lurched forward, leaving the burning pirate ship behind. As the adrenaline began to fade, exhaustion overtook her, and she slipped into unconsciousness. When Elia awoke, she was in a sterile, white room. The contrast to the grimy cell of the pirate ship was startling. She sat up slowly, her body aching from the ordeal. The door opened, and a woman with sharp eyes and an air of authority entered. "Welcome, Elia. My name is Commander Lysandra. You're safe now." Safe? Elia's voice was hoarse, disbelief etched into her features. "Who are you people?" "We are Zeski, a covert organization dedicated to maintaining order in the galaxy," Lysandra explained, her tone matter of fact. "We've been monitoring the pirate activities and intervened when we learned of your capture." Elia's mind spun with questions, but one above all demanded an answer. "Why me?" Lysandra's gaze softened slightly. "You have potential, Elia, potential that we can help you harness. Zeski offers you a chance to make a difference, to ensure what happened to you never happens to anyone else." The words were a lifeline in the sea of her despair. Elia clung to them, the promise of purpose and strength igniting a spark of hope within her. "What do I have to do?" "First you need to recover," Lysandra said, a hint of a smile touching her lips. "And then, if you choose to, you will undergo our training program. It will not be easy, but it will make you stronger than you can imagine." Elia looked down at her hands, the scars of her captivity still fresh. She thought of her family, of the life she had lost. Slowly she nodded. "I'll do it." "Good," Lysandra said, her smile widening. "Rest now. Your journey is just beginning." As Elia lay back on the pristine bed, she felt the weight of her past begin to lift. The shadows of her grief and fear receded, replaced by a fierce determination. She did not know what awaited her in the depths of Zeski's training, but she knew one thing: she would emerge from it stronger, sharper, and ready to face whatever came next. In the quiet of the night, as the stars glittered outside the window, Elia closed her eyes and allowed herself to dream not of the past, but of the future she would forge with her own hands. Elia's transformation began the moment she crossed the threshold into Zeski's covert training facility, a stark contrast to the lush greenery of Valoria. The sterile, metallic halls echoed with the sounds of discipline and rigor, a place where innocence was ground down into efficiency and strength. Elia's heart, already heavy with the loss of her family, hardened with each step she took deeper into the heart of this cold, calculated world. Her first day in the training compound set the tone for the months to come. The head instructor, a severe woman with ice-blue eyes named Seraphine, wasted no time in breaking down the new recruits. "You are no longer who you were," Seraphine declared, her voice as sharp as a blade. "You are now instruments of precision, forged in the fires of necessity." Training sessions were grueling, beginning at dawn and often extending late into the night. Physical conditioning was relentless. Ilia was pushed to the brink, her body aching from endless drills, combat simulations, and endurance tests. The instructors spared no one. Weakness was an invitation to harsher treatment. Ilia's muscles burned, her skin bruised, but she refused to break. Each day she rose with a singular determination, fueled by the memory of her family and the desire to survive. The psychological conditioning was equally intense. Recruits were subjected to simulations designed to desensitize them to violence and emotional manipulation. Ilia found herself in scenarios where she had to make impossible choices, each one chipping away at her sense of self. But even as Zeski tried to erase her past, Ilia clung to the memories of Valoria, using them as a shield against the agency's dehumanizing tactics. It was during these brutal training sessions that Ilia met a fellow recruit named Alexei. Unlike the others, Alexei carried a sense of humor that seemed impervious to Zeski's oppressive atmosphere. He would crack jokes during their brief moments of respite, and though Ilia rarely smiled, she found his resilience inspiring. They developed a silent camaraderie, an unspoken pact to look out for each other amid the relentless pressure. Despite the relentless nature of their training, Ilia excelled. Her instructors took note of her adaptability and fierce resolve. She became proficient in hand-to-hand combat, marksmanship, and tactical strategy. Her mind, once filled with the warmth of family and the beauty of Valoria, now brimmed with techniques of survival and subterfuge. Yet, as her skills grew, so did her inner conflict. The more proficient she became, the more she felt the weight of what she was losing. Nights were the hardest. In the silence of her barracks, memories of her family would flood back, bringing a tidal wave of emotions she struggled to contain. She often found herself tracing the scar on her forearm, a mark from the pirate raid reminding her of the life she had lost and the promise she had made to herself to stay strong. During one particularly harrowing simulation, designed to test their loyalty, Ilia was forced to face her deepest fears. The scenario involved rescuing hostages, but the twist came when the hostages were revealed to be projections of her family. The simulation demanded she choose between her mission and saving them. The psychological strain was immense, but Ilia knew it was a test. With a heavy heart, she completed the mission, but the exercise left her shaken, the lines between reality and illusion blurring dangerously. Seraphine, ever the observer, noted Ilia's struggle. "Your past is a weakness," she told Ilia in a rare private conversation. "You must sever it if you are to become what Zeski needs." But Ilia knew that her past was also her strength. It was what kept her human, what kept her connected to a part of herself that Zeski could never fully control. As months turned into years, Ilia's reputation within Zeski grew. She became one of their top operatives, her name whispered with a mix of respect and fear. Missions became routine, each one a test of her skills and resolve. But no matter how deep she delved into the shadows, she never fully let go of the light that once filled her life. It was evening within the cold metallic walls of Zeski's training facility. Exhausted from the training, Ilia walked towards her dormitory, trying to suppress the fatigue of her muscles and the conflict in her mind. The training session that day had been as brutal and challenging as ever, a series of tasks that pushed the limits of their physical endurance and tested their mental resilience. Today, however, Ilia had a strange feeling inside. Between the sharp corners of the training ground, the harsh commands and the endurance tests, she felt that something was about to change. This feeling created a tension that made her uncomfortable. When she reached the dormitory door, she unexpectedly found Seraphine waiting there. Seraphine looked at Ilia with her usual cold, hard gaze. "Ilia, come with me," she said shortly and clearly. Ilia followed Seraphine and started walking deeper into the training facility. Where they were going was an area usually only accessible to senior operators. It was where missions were planned, strategies were formulated, and the most critical information was stored. After passing through a series of security doors, they came to the door of a large room. Seraphine opened the door and invited Elia in. The room was like a command center, equipped with technological devices and large screens on the walls. Various information, maps and images flowed across the screens. In the center of the room there was a long table, and at the head of it sat Alastor, one of Zeski's leaders. Alastor was a middle-aged man with a sharp gaze. Looking towards Elia, he nodded and began to speak. "Elia, it is good to see you here," Alastor said, his voice serious but calm. "During your time at Zeski, you have shown extraordinary tenacity and skill. Now we are preparing you for an even greater task." As Elia listened intently to Alastor's words, an image on one of the screens caught her attention. There was a laboratory displaying advanced technology and people working in it. Alastor, noticing Elia's attention, continued his speech. "This is the main lab of Arctech, a major weapons company based in London. Its CEO, Alex London, is well known for his scientific innovations. However, recently we need to get our hands on some of the company's advanced technologies. Your mission is to take over Alex London's projects and gather critical information for Zeski." As Elia tried to digest what Alastor had said, Seraphine interjected. "This mission will be an excellent test of your abilities. It is critical to Zeski and you must succeed." And Elia took a deep breath and nodded. She understood the difficulty and importance of the mission. Alex London's world was very different from the dark and harsh realities she was used to. But this mission was an opportunity for her. It could be a turning point, not only for Zeski, but also for her own inner conflicts and goals. Alastor ended the meeting by speaking one last time. "Elia, this mission will be a test for you. Finalize your preparations and act. I wish you success." Elia struggled with a series of thoughts as she left the room. A challenging task awaited her, but this mission could be an opportunity to reshape her destiny. While carrying the traces of the past, she was taking a step towards the future full of hope. Elia stood at the edge of the bustling marketplace, her keen eyes scanning the crowd for any signs of trouble. The vibrant colors and lively chatter of Valoria's capital city felt alien to her now, a stark contrast to the sterile halls of Zeski's training facilities. Her mission today was simple: observe and report. Yet, as she blended into the throngs of people, her thoughts were miles away, occupied by a man who seemed to defy everything she had been trained to believe. Alex London was an enigma. As the CEO of one of the largest arms companies in the galaxy, he wielded power and influence that could easily rival Zeski's. But it wasn't his business acumen that intrigued her, it was his humanitarian projects, his relentless pursuit of scientific advancements aimed at bettering humanity. In a world where power often bred corruption, Alex stood as a beacon of hope and integrity. And for reasons she couldn't quite understand, Elia found herself drawn to him. Her earpiece crackled to life, jolting her from her reverie. Target sighted. Moving towards the eastern sector came the voice of her handler. Elia acknowledged the message with a curt nod, her gaze shifting to follow Alex as he made his way through the crowd. He moved with purpose, his tall frame cutting an impressive figure as he greeted vendors and locals with a genuine smile. This was a man who was comfortable among the people, a stark contrast to the shadowy existence Elia had known for years. As she trailed him, Elia's mind wandered to their first meeting. It had been under far less pleasant circumstances, a covert mission where their paths had crossed unexpectedly. She had been sent to sabotage one of his humanitarian projects, a clean energy initiative that Zeski deemed a threat to their control. But Alex had surprised her. Instead of a hardened business magnate, she had found a man passionately arguing with his team about the potential to save lives. That night, as she watched him from the shadows, she had felt something stir within her, a flicker of doubt about her mission, and a curiosity about this man who seemed so out of place in her world of deception and ruthlessness. Since then, she had found herself assigned to more missions involving him, each encounter deepening her intrigue and internal conflict. Today was no different. As Alex entered a modest building on the outskirts of the marketplace, Elia slipped in behind him, her movements fluid and silent. Inside, she found herself in a small community center where Alex was greeted warmly by a group of scientists and engineers. They were gathered around a holographic display, discussing plans for a new water purification system that could revolutionize life on Valoria. Ilya took a position in the shadows, her eyes fixed on Alex, as he spoke with fervor about the project's potential. His passion was infectious, drawing in everyone around him. She saw the respect and admiration in their eyes, a reflection of the growing feelings within her. Here was a man who could wield his power for destruction but chose instead to build and heal. As the meeting progressed, Ilya's earpiece crackled again. Intel suggests possible interference from rival factions. Stay alert, she tensed, her senses sharpening as she scanned the room for threats. Her hand instinctively moved to the concealed weapon at her side. The door burst open, and a group of armed men stormed in, disrupting the peaceful gathering. Chaos erupted as scientists scrambled for cover. Ilya's training kicked in. She moved swiftly, her body a blur of motion, as she disarmed the first assailant with a precise strike. Alex, to his credit, remained calm, quickly assessing the situation and helping to usher people to safety. Ilya fought with a ruthless efficiency, her inner conflict momentarily forgotten as she focused on neutralizing the threat. But as the last attacker fell, a new realization dawned on her: these men were not random mercenaries, they bore the mark of Zesky. Her heart sank as the implications hit her. Zesky was not just observing Alex, they saw him as a direct threat. In the aftermath, Alex approached her, his eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude and curiosity. "Thank you," he said, his voice steady. "But who are you?" Ilya hesitated, the weight of her dual life pressing down on her. "Someone who believes in what you're doing," she replied cryptically, knowing it was not the full truth but the most she could offer. Alex studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Whoever you are, we could use someone with your skills. This fight is far from over." For the first time in years, Ilya felt a spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, there was a way out of the darkness. As she looked into Alex's determined eyes, she saw a future where she was more than just an agent of Zesky, a future where she could fight for something real, something good. Their alliance had begun, born out of necessity and shared purpose. Ilya knew it would not be easy, but for the first time since the raid on Valoria, she felt a glimmer of light piercing through the shadows of her past. And she was ready to embrace it. Ilya was perched on the edge of her bed, the dim light of her apartment casting long shadows on the walls. The city outside was a blur of neon lights and distant sounds, but her mind was elsewhere, tangled in thoughts of her latest mission for Zesky. The familiar buzz of her communicator snapped her back to reality. She glanced at the screen and saw Alex's name. Hesitating for a moment, she accepted the call. Ilya, Alex's voice was calm, yet there was an underlying urgency. "We need to talk. Can you come to my lab?" She could hear the seriousness in his tone, which was unusual for Alex. "What's this about?" she asked, her curiosity piqued. "It's important," he replied. "I have some information that I think you'll want to see. It concerns Zesky." Her heart skipped a beat at the mention of Zesky. "I'll be there in 20 minutes," she said, ending the call and quickly gathering her things. Alex's lab was a fortress of technology, hidden away in one of the city's industrial districts. As Ilya approached, the automated gates recognized her and opened silently, allowing her to enter. She made her way through the maze of corridors, finally arriving at Alex's private lab. The door slid open, revealing Alex standing over a table cluttered with holographic displays and blueprints. "Ilya," he greeted her with a nod. "Thanks for coming on such short notice." She stepped inside, the door closing behind her with a soft hiss. "What's going on, Alex? You sounded urgent." "I've been doing some digging," Alex said, motioning for her to join him at the table. "And I found something disturbing about Zesky's latest projects." Ilya's eyes scanned the holographic blueprints hovering above the table. They depicted a network of surveillance drones far more advanced than anything she had seen before. "What are these?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "These are Zesky's new drones," Alex explained. "They're designed for covert operations, capable of infiltrating secure locations without detection." Her mind raced as she processed the information. She recognized the design. It was part of a classified project she had been briefed on during her training. "How did you get these?" she asked, suspicion creeping into her voice. Alex met her gaze, his expression serious. "I have my ways. But that's not the point. The point is, Zeski is planning something big, and we need to stop them. Ilya felt a knot form in her stomach. "What do you need from me?" she asked, knowing the answer but needing to hear it from him. "I need your expertise and your inside knowledge," Alex said bluntly. "We need to locate their manufacturing site and take it out. But we can't do it alone." Trust. It was a fragile concept in her world, one that had been shattered many times over. But looking into Alex's eyes, she saw something she hadn't seen in a long time: hope. "I know someone who might help," she said slowly. "A former Zeski agent. He's in hiding, but I think I can reach him." Alex nodded, his expression unwavering. "Do whatever it takes. We don't have much time." As she turned to leave, Alex called after her. "Ilya, this isn't just about stopping Zeski. It's about saving lives and making a difference. We can't afford to fail." His words resonated deeply within her, stirring something she had thought long dead. "I understand," she replied, her voice filled with determination. "I'll make the call." Ilya found herself in a seedy bar on the outskirts of the city, a place where people went to disappear. She scanned the room until her eyes landed on a figure sitting alone in the corner, a hood pulled low over his face. She approached cautiously. "Ethan," she said softly, taking a seat across from him. He looked up, his eyes narrowing in recognition. "Ilya, it's been a while." "It has," she agreed. "I need your help." Ethan's expression hardened. "Of course you do. Why else would you come here?" "Zeski is planning something massive," she said, ignoring his bitterness. "We need to stop them." He studied her for a moment, then sighed. "You never could walk away, could you?" "No," she admitted, "and neither could you." Ethan's lips twisted into a wry smile. "Fair point. What do you need?" "We need to destroy their drone manufacturing site," Ilya explained. "Alex and I can't do it alone. We need someone with your skills." Ethan's eyes flickered with recognition at the mention of Alex. "The arms dealer? You're working with him now." "He's more than just an arms dealer," Ilya said sharply. "He's trying to make a difference." Ethan shook his head. "You've changed, Ilya. The old you wouldn't have trusted someone like him." "People change," she said quietly. "I need to know if you're with us." For a long moment, Ethan was silent. Then he nodded. "All right, I'm in. But this doesn't mean I've forgiven you for the past." "I don't expect you to," she replied. "I just need your help." Back at the lab, Ilya relayed the news to Alex. "He's agreed to help," she said. "But he's not happy about it." Alex nodded. "We don't need him to be happy. We just need him to be effective." As they planned their next move, Ilya couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the brink of something monumental. The path ahead was fraught with danger, but for the first time in a long while, she felt a glimmer of hope. She wasn't alone in this fight. Together with Alex and Ethan, she had a chance to make things right. And so, with resolve hardening in her heart, Ilya prepared for the battle to come. The truth about Zeski was out, and there was no turning back. It was time to face the darkness head-on and reclaim the future that had been stolen from her. Ilya stood at the edge of the cliff, the wind whipping her hair into a frenzy. Below her, the vast expanse of the ocean churned, mirroring the turmoil inside her. She had spent years burying her emotions, forging herself into a weapon under Zeski's ruthless training. But now, the icy resolve that had kept her going was melting, thawed by an unexpected warmth. Alex London. The decision to leave Zeski had not come easily. Ilya had known nothing but their harsh discipline and their promise of vengeance against those who wronged her. Yet, as she observed Alex's tireless dedication to humanitarian projects, she felt a stirring within her. His values clashed sharply with the darkness that had been instilled in her, drawing her towards a different path, one she had thought forever closed to her. She turned away from the cliff, her mind made up. Alex was waiting for her at the makeshift hideout they had established, an old abandoned lighthouse that stood tall against the encroaching night. Its beam, though aged and weathered, still cut through the darkness a beacon of hope. Inside, Alex was hunched over a table cluttered with maps, blueprints, and dossiers. He looked up as she entered, his eyes reflecting a mix of determination and concern. "Ilya," he began, his voice steady but gentle, "are you sure about this? Once we make our move, there's no turning back." She met his gaze, her eyes steely with resolve. "I've never been more sure of anything. Zesky has to be stopped, and I can't do it alone. We need to work together." A moment of silence passed between them, heavy with unspoken fears and burgeoning trust. Alex nodded, his expression softening. "All right, let's go over the plan again." Their target was a Zesky facility nestled deep in the mountains, a fortress of steel and secrecy, where new agents were being trained and indoctrinated. Taking it down would cripple Zesky's operations and send a clear message their reign of terror was coming to an end. As they pored over the details, the complexity of their mission became apparent. The facility was heavily guarded, with state-of-the-art security systems and a battalion of trained operatives. But Ilya had spent years inside Zesky. She knew their weaknesses, their blind spots. With Alex's technological expertise and her insider knowledge, they had a fighting chance. "Timing is crucial," Ilya said, tracing a route on the map with her finger. "We strike at dawn when the guards are changing shifts. We'll infiltrate through the ventilation system here." She pointed to a less fortified section of the facility and make our way to the control room to disable the security systems. Alex nodded, absorbing every detail. "And once we're inside..." Ilya's voice hardened. "We neutralize the threat, we free the recruits, and we destroy everything." The hours slipped away as they refined their plan, every contingency accounted for, every possibility considered. The bond between them grew stronger, forged in the fires of their shared purpose. By the time the first light of dawn began to creep over the horizon, they were ready. They moved swiftly and silently through the forest, their shadows merging with the lingering darkness. As they approached the facility, Ilya's heart pounded in her chest, a drumbeat of anticipation and fear. She glanced at Alex, drawing strength from his calm demeanor. Together they scaled the outer wall, slipping into the ventilation system with practiced ease. The facility was a labyrinth of cold, sterile corridors, the air thick with tension. They moved with precision, avoiding patrols and security cameras, guided by Ilya's intimate knowledge of the layout. When they reached the control room, Alex set to work, his fingers flying over the keyboard as he hacked into the security systems. Ilya stood guard, her senses on high alert. The minutes stretched into eternity, each second a reminder of the stakes. Finally, Alex gave a nod, signaling that the systems were down. "We're in," he whispered. They moved quickly, disabling guards and freeing recruits. The facility erupted into chaos, alarms blaring as Zesky operatives scrambled to respond. Ilya and Alex fought side by side, a seamless blend of skill and strategy. For the first time in years, Ilya felt a glimmer of hope, a sense of purpose beyond revenge. As they planted explosives in the facility's core, Ilya faced one last obstacle: her former mentor, a man who had shaped her into the agent she was. The confrontation was fierce, a clash of wills and combat skills. But Ilya had something her mentor lacked: a reason to fight beyond mere survival. With a final, decisive blow, Ilya stood victorious. She and Alex made their escape, the facility erupting into flames behind them, a symbol of their triumph over darkness. As they emerged into the dawn, the first rays of sunlight bathing them in warmth, Ilya turned to Alex, her heart lighter than it had been in years. "Thank you," she said softly, her voice filled with emotion. Alex smiled, his eyes reflecting the same hope that now burned within her. "This is just the beginning," he replied. "Together, we can build a new future." Hand in hand, they walked away from the wreckage, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Ilya was no longer just an agent, she was a woman reborn, filled with love, hope, and the promise of a brighter tomorrow. The first light of dawn crept over the horizon, casting a soft, golden glow on the remnants of the once imposing Zesky headquarters. The building stood in ruins, a silent testament to the battles fought and won. Among the rubble, two figures stood side by side, their silhouettes framed by the rising sun. Ilya and Alex looked out at the world before them. a world that now held promise and hope. Elia took a deep breath, feeling the cool morning air fill her lungs. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of dew and the faint aroma of blooming flowers. She glanced at Alex, his face etched with the lines of both fatigue and determination. His eyes, however, sparkled with a renewed sense of purpose. They had come a long way, and now, standing on the brink of a new beginning, Elia felt a surge of emotions that she struggled to contain. "This is it, Alex," she said softly, her voice tinged with awe. "We made it." Alex turned to her, his gaze warm and reassuring. "We did," he replied, taking her hand in his. "And now we have the chance to rebuild, to create something better than before." The journey to this moment had been arduous, filled with danger and sacrifice. Elia's mind wandered back to the countless missions, the narrow escapes, and the fierce battles they had fought together. She remembered the moments of doubt, the nights when her past haunted her dreams, and the days when the weight of her choices threatened to crush her spirit. But through it all, Alex had been her anchor, his unwavering support and love guiding her through the darkest times. As they walked through the rubble, Elia's thoughts turned to the future. She envisioned a world where the knowledge of science and health her family had cherished could flourish once more. She saw a place where children could grow up in peace, unburdened by the shadows of war and tyranny. The thought filled her with a sense of purpose she hadn't felt in years. "What's next?" she asked, her voice steady and resolute. Alex smiled, a hint of excitement in his eyes. "We start by rebuilding," he said. "But this time we do it right. We focus on sustainable technologies, on healing the planet and its people. We create a world where science serves humanity, not the other way around." Elia nodded, feeling a spark of hope ignite within her. "And we'll do it together," she added, squeezing his hand. "No more secrets, no more darkness." They spent the day laying the groundwork for their new vision. Meetings with allies and former enemies alike, discussing plans and strategies to ensure that Zeski's remnants could never rise again. They talked about education, healthcare, and the importance of safeguarding the environment. As the hours passed, Elia felt a sense of unity and collaboration that she had longed for. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Elia and Alex found themselves standing in what would become the heart of their new world. It was a place of stark beauty, with rolling hills and a river that sparkled under the twilight. Here, they would build a new headquarters, a beacon of hope and progress. Alex turned to Elia, his expression serious yet tender. "Elia, I want you to know that I couldn't have done any of this without you. Your strength, your courage, they've inspired me every step of the way." Elia felt a lump in her throat as she met his gaze. "And I couldn't have found my way back without you," she replied, her voice breaking with emotion. "You've given me a reason to hope again, a reason to believe in a future worth fighting for." They embraced, holding each other close, as the stars began to twinkle above. In that moment, surrounded by the vast expanse of the universe, they felt a profound connection not just to each other, but to the world they were determined to protect and nurture. As the night deepened, they sat by the river, discussing their dreams and aspirations. They talked about the projects they would undertake, the lives they would touch, and the legacy they hoped to leave behind. For the first time in years, Elia felt a sense of peace and contentment. The darkness of her past had given way to a future filled with love, hope, and endless possibilities. "We'll build something beautiful," Alex said softly, his arm wrapped around her shoulders. Elia smiled, leaning into his embrace. "Together," she whispered, her heart brimming with gratitude and love. "Always together." And so, under the vast, starlit sky, Elia and Alex embarked on a new journey. A journey of healing, of rebuilding, and of creating a world where love and hope could flourish. They had faced the darkness and emerged stronger, and now, hand in hand, they were ready to light the way for others. The dawn of a new era had begun,